Tonight, a new report warns of a growing terrorist threat in Indonesia. The assessment is based on in-depth interviews with 33 terrorists in Indonesian prisons. The report's author is Dr. Carl Ungerer from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, and he says the prisons in many cases have become terrorism incubators. Dr. Ungerer says violent religious extremism is likely to increase, with the biggest threat coming from a new breed of so-called freelance terrorists who'll soon be released back into the community. Margot O'Neill has our exclusive story and a warning: it contains confronting footage.
Former Australian government intelligence analyst Dr. Carl Ungerer has been researching Indonesian Islamic terrorism for nearly a decade. But his latest report has left him deeply concerned about the future. Based on unprecedented, in-depth interviews with 33 convicted terrorists, he says a group of hardcore jihadis are preparing to leave Indonesian jails over the next 18 months, and some say they want to bomb Western targets.
Several of the men that we interviewed hold this view. One of them said to us directly that if he was released from prison today, he would bomb the US Embassy tomorrow.
These men say they no longer need the backing of a large terror organisation like the now-defunct Jemaah Islamiyah, or JI, which orchestrated the Bali bombing in 2002, killing more than 200 people, including 88 Australians. That operation took 3 months to plan, involved 20 people and cost about $40,000. A growing number now call themselves freelance terrorists, willing to try smaller, more random attacks.
We're no longer dealing with organisations or organisational hubs. We're dealing with individuals. Some call them lone wolves, some call them, freelancers. Nonetheless, individuals who will be able to go out and simply conduct operations in groups of 2 or 3, which is pretty much all it took to do the Marriott hotel bombings in 2009, and that means that the threat is not going away. If anything, it's getting worse.
Such attacks are already a growing scourge in Indonesia. Last year, there were a series of book bombs. Australia helps train Indonesia's counter-terrorism unit, which has arrested about 600 people in the past decade. Based on the prison interviews, Dr. Ungerer says the convicted terrorists fall into 2 groups. The vast majority who fought in specific, ongoing conflicts like Afghanistan, or in local conflicts with Christians such as in Ambon. This group, he says, is less likely to participate in indiscriminate bombings such as Bali. But about 30% now share Al-Qaeda's view of global jihad against the West and are seemingly immune to de-radicalisation programs.
The majority of those who have been arrested and tried in the prison system have in fact not yet gone back to their old networks. But the 30-odd% that have are the more dangerous ones. Their time spent in prison has not diluted in any way their sense of wanting to be part of a violent extremist group prepared to kill both the Indonesians and Westerners.
Dr. Ungerer says the prisoners are contributing to a surge in violent jihadi literature in Indonesia.
Much of this publishing material is actually being done inside the prisons. There are people, convicted terrorists, who are writing, getting messages out from inside the prison system.
Indonesia's counter-terrorism chief last year acknowledged the problem of violent religious propaganda.
As long as the radical ideology is growing, extremism is increasing, then, we have got really huge reservoir for the would-be terrorists.
The rise of freelance terrorism is in line with Al-Qaeda rhetoric, which is also encouraging more individual action. It now publishes an online English-language magazine called Inspire, inciting homegrown murderous acts around the world, with feature stories like "Build a bomb in your mother's kitchen to kill the infidel." Its publisher is a Yemeni-American named Anwar al-Awlaki.
Anwar al-Awlaki is considered the number one security threat in terms of terrorism today, for this very reason, that he is able to reach out in English through this online magazine to youth in countries like Australia and the United States and in the UK and Europe. So clearly this is the strategy now that we're seeing from Al-Qaeda, even after bin Laden's death, which I don't think makes a great deal of difference to this particular strategy. And the strategy is try and get as many individuals as you can, both in the West and in Muslim countries, to conduct their own operations.
But while freelance terrorism is the latest trend, Dr. Ungara also warns that the re-emergence of a more organised terrorist force could be just around the corner. Last year, the Indonesian police busted a gathering of 300 disparate jihadis at a training camp in Aceh, partly organised by the radical cleric Abu Bakar Bashir. He's since been convicted of terrorism-related offences.
What we can expect is that these groups get out of the prisons, they're more hardened, they're more anti-West, anti-Indonesia. It won't look like JI anymore, but they will be new networks and they will be just as dangerous.
Margot O'Neill, Lateline.